Our second reading from the New Testament is from the Gospel according to Mark, beginning at chapter 7, verse 24. At this point in the Gospel, Jesus' travels take him to a place where he has an opportunity to do something new. From there, he set out and went away to the region of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of Syrophoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first. For it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." So she went home, found the child lying on the bed, and the demon gone. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Why church? Why? Why come to church on a Sunday morning? Do we come to listen? To learn? Do we come to sing? To pray? Do we come to commune, to join in worship? Do we come because we believe it's the right thing to do, whether or not we join in all those other activities? Do we come because it's what we've always done since we were little? Do we come because mom or dad or grandparents or godparents said, "Come on, sleepyhead, it's Sunday"? Or do we come because above all, we believe it's our responsibility to bring our children, our grandchildren, the next beloved generation? Our reasons for coming on Sunday morning are as varied as we are. I have no doubt that we have all different kinds of combinations of motivations inside us for being here. But one reason we've all heard, and one we've probably embraced at different times in our lives, it's all about Jesus. We come to learn about Jesus. We come to learn from Jesus. Jesus is our first and most important teacher when it comes to learning about God, and church would seem to be the right place for us to do that learning, either as Christians or as people who are interested in what Jesus has to say. In the name of honesty, if we hope to learn from Jesus, the passage I have just finished reading presents us with some challenges. We've just read a story about Jesus in which first he's trying to get away from people. You know, maybe Jesus was an introvert. That's fair. He learned how to function extrovertedly, as you know. But he needed his downtime. He's trying to get away from people, but secondly, it's a passage in which he rudely rebuffs a mom who's come to him for help for her daughter. Let's set the background. Before the passage starts, Jesus has been embroiled in a conflict with the Jewish religious authorities. And don't forget, Jesus was a Jew, and these are his people. These are the people from whom he learned everything he knows about God. More often than not, though, the Gospels portray Jesus as being in conflict with those higher-ups. Today, his reaction to that conflict, quite honestly, was to get out of Dodge. More specifically, he removes himself to safer territory, going to Tyre, a Gentile region, where the religious authorities who've been giving him problems actually are no one's authority. Not there, anyway. When we meet Jesus, he's gone into a house, fervently hoping that it will be an out-of-sight, out-of-mind situation for him. But that's not in the cards. He could not escape notice. A woman hears about Jesus and comes to the house and goes in. Her daughter is suffering from an unclean spirit. That's demon possession, which means unpredictable, frightening behavior, terrifying perhaps to the child more than to anyone else. This woman wants Jesus' help, but she has 3 strikes against her. First, she is not Jewish. She belongs to a different ethnic community, a different religious community, which means it would be very unusual, bold, you might say, for her to even approach Jesus. Second, her daughter's behavior is frightening and upsetting and the kind of thing that usually makes a person a pariah in their community. And third, she's a woman. And this is still an era where normal is the male head of the household taking responsibility for things like talking to the famous healer when he comes into town. And when she talks to Jesus, well, you see what she does. Bold is the right word, but also humble. She bows down at Jesus' feet. She begs him, "Help my daughter. Help my child." We realize that she does what any parent, any mother would do if their child's well-being were threatened, if their health were compromised. It's like going to the doctor's house after the clinic is closed, when he's settled in for a nice dinner and a glass of wine, and pounding on the door. She is desperate. But Jesus' response is shocking. "My healing is for the children of Israel, my Jewish kin, not for some Gentile dog like your daughter." This is the Jesus we want to learn about? This is the Jesus we want to learn from? A lot of different explanations have been offered up for what Jesus does here. The one a lot of us grew up with is Jesus was testing her faith. But in this gospel, that would be wildly out of character for Jesus. So far, he has healed everyone who has come his way. And up until this point, he's never tested anyone's faith in order to agree to heal them. Of course, up until this point, they've all been fellow Jews. Another explanation is that Jesus is sensitive to the fact that the Gentile woman in front of him is of a higher social class, that he offers healing freely to all the poor, but not to this woman's privileged child. But that doesn't hold water because Jesus has already freely and happily healed people of a higher social status. Remember the religious leader, the synagogue leader's daughter, Jairus' daughter. Again, the only difference is the religious and ethnic background of the people being healed. And still others say, well, he's tired. He's cranky. But that's true other times as well. And in those cases, Jesus quickly finds the compassion in himself. He heals people. There is no good explanation for the cold, unkind way Jesus speaks to this woman, and by extension, to her suffering child, her tiny daughter. The only explanation seems to be that Jesus believes what he says, that he is called only to care for the children of Israel, that the children get the food, not the Gentile dogs. This woman doesn't take no for an answer. "But sir," she says, "even the dogs under the table get the children's crumbs." And in that instance, something shifts in Jesus. The best way I can understand it is that some new understanding of his calling, his mission, opens up inside of him. Maybe it's that he heard his own words echoed back to him in that woman's clever retort, and he cringed. Maybe he suddenly had a vivid image of this poor, suffering child scrabbling under a table next to actual dogs. We don't know. All we know is this. In this moment, Jesus, the teacher, becomes Jesus, the student. And this unnamed Gentile Syrophoenician woman becomes the one who is teaching Jesus. She has changed his mind. Years ago, I led a small group in a study on Marcus Borg's wonderful book, Meeting Jesus Again for the First Time. And we had a fascinating discussion about some hypothetical questions. Did the Jesus we meet in the Gospels know the theory of relativity? Did he know that the earth circled the sun and not vice versa? Did he know about the circulatory and nervous systems? Did he know what a thyroid did? How the brain works? What does it mean when we make the faith claim that Jesus is fully human and fully God? Does it mean that Jesus at all times has access to the mind and therefore the knowledge of God? Does it mean that Jesus knew things his contemporaries didn't because God knows all? Or does it mean that Jesus, in him, God limited God's self? That's the beauty of the incarnation in certain ways, such as being born of a woman. How does it make us feel to ponder the possibility that Jesus might have grown in understanding? That Jesus might have learned things as we learn things all our lives long. Not only just as a baby and a child, but as a man who already had God's capacity to heal. I do believe that we come to church to learn about God, specifically by learning about Jesus, but I also believe that we are here to take our place in the story. Jesus' story, God's story, the story of God's covenant people throughout the ages, which includes us. The story always involves a gathering of the community of faithful. The story always involves hearing from God and learning how we are to live in faith. Today's story includes a celebration of our blessings and a special blessing for the work ahead of us. It includes a story about Jesus that contains a startling twist for him and maybe for us. And today's the story we are in, not just hearing, reminds us that God's table is for all and not just for some. That there is no limit to God's welcome based on ethnic or religious differences. That there is no limit to Jesus' ability to hear the pleas of desperate people. And it's a good thing because we too fall before Jesus, bold and humble with our requests. We beg Jesus for what we desperately need. And the beautiful promise of the gospel is that Jesus does not leave us on our knees begging, but lifts us up and brings us to the table and offers us a seat there. And he bids us, come and eat. Thanks be to God. Amen.